All right, today we're going to discuss how to insert a web browser into your GTK application. This is an option in Glade. It's not very hard to do. It's kind of hard to explore everything in it, but it is a very complete web browser. First of all, it's called WebKitGtk, and there's its homepage, WebKitGtk.org. And there's information there about it and about stable releases. It's used in a number of actual browsers. I've actually seen reference that it's used in Safari. I don't know if that's true. But obviously it's used in Epiphany and these others, which I'm not familiar with. It doesn't matter. It's a collection of functions and code that allow you to build your own web browser. Now, the number of functions is enormous. Number of signals is enormous. Number of options is enormous. But you don't need to use every one. Okay, so this is the main page, and if we go to a stable release, this is the main index. You may want to copy these down. Actually, I've put them in the code. They should be there. But this is the main index. And these are just categories, classes of functions. These are not the actual functions. So if I click Web Context here, you see there's a lot of functions on the context area, for example. Things due to the cache model and so forth. Things you generally don't have to worry about, but they're there if you need to play with them. All right, go back up here. This is an error. The text here at this point in time is wrong. There should be a title here, and instead it's a piece of text. This is the main page for web views. WebKit Web View is this is where a actual web page or a web view is created. Okay, this is the main page, and you can see up here somebody has screwed up the title, and that title is being picked up in the index here. So it's the second one here. It's the one that's the main entry into the web view. We use several of these, and there are several down here you want to use. There's probably a lot of these down here you never want to touch. Playing with JavaScript and so forth and so on. I've not done most of them, only done a few. Done a few in order to make it work. Okay, pop this off the screen. We can get that off the screen too. Let's look at it. That's it. That's what I built. That's what you can build. Now what it loaded here was a file which is in the directory here. It's oops, I did an open link. That was wrong. I want to open a terminal. Okay, the actual file it's bringing up is menu.html, and it has a little bit of CSS in it, but there's my background, which is a slightly bluish gray. Let's see, the top font is green and so forth. It's just standard old-fashioned HTML. Nothing particularly interesting about it. But that is the file that's coming up by default. That's because it was set to come up by default. It's an HTML file. It's a web file. Anyway, if I click on thing, I'm in Charleston, South Carolina, so if I click on weather, oddly enough, it's a very slow one to come up, but that's not me. That's the Weather Bureau. It's 85 degrees outside, heat index at 92. You know, the usual things that you find on a Weather Bureau page. This can't be expanded. I mean, it's draggable, but it doesn't get any bigger. You can make it bigger, though. Okay, that's one of the options. But I set it up to, be small size. All right, you can drag and drop things down here into a URI. One of which is you can drag local things, and I have to be careful because I can't do music because of YouTube. But I actually have some Morse code here, and if I drag this over, you notice when next to the hand there it goes to plus. Now it's an arrow. I move it up and it becomes a plus. That's the point at which you can drag it. If you go too high in this, you lose the plus. For some reason, it has to be exactly in that place there. So you can see that's a URI. That's like a URL, but they call it a URI. And it's the location in my system of that file. And it begins with file : / And then there's the address, which is /home /ocane /desktop / blah, blah, blah. It's a WAV file. That funny little thing here at the end has a carriage return or a line feed or something. Line feed, I guess. It shows up as such. It doesn't need to be there. It wouldn't hurt if I got rid of it, I think. Never say that until you try it. Okay, so you can actually reference files on your own system this way. or they can be HTTP type things. So if I hit go, there you go. Unfortunately, I don't have a stop. I didn't put a kill in it, but there are ways of killing it. All right, so that's what it looks like. I'll go back up here. Linking to regular sites, for example, Myrtle Beach, which is up the coast, and they have, I think it's getting ready. It's them pulling this out of YouTube, as you can see. And I don't want to go to the Tokyo Olympics, and I can go into their, I don't know what they call it, small theater mode. Looks nice up in Myrtle Beach. There's thunderstorms nearby, so nonetheless, I should be at the beach. That's Myrtle Beach. Now, if I want to go back, if I right-click once, I get this stuff. If I right-click a second time, I get other stuff. Eventually, around here, if I find some place to get it, I can get it back. I can put a back button in. That's possible. I just don't have one. We're going to have to do everything. We're just getting it started. You can put that stuff in if you want. What if I wanted that in a separate window? When I clicked on this, it was just a standard left button click. What if instead, let's try Las Vegas. I don't know what I'm going to get. If I right-click and I say open link in new window, well, there you are. Again, this is a YouTube video, and that's Las Vegas, where it is, I guess 10 o'clock in the morning or thereabouts. It's a webcam out in Las Vegas, and you can see it's again these are fixed size. You can change the magnification, and there you see it. So if I hit close, it disappears and goes away. So you can do things like that if you want to. You can use the web browser to play music and set up your own playlists and stuff like that. All right. Let's see. I mentioned zooming. In my own product here, it's not product in the sense I sell it. It's free. If I go to the web here, and if I go to Charleston weather, I've actually got a zoom button put in here. You can see I can zoom in on the text. And when you zoom in, videos don't get larger, but the text certainly does. Or the alternative, you can go down. These are in increments of 1%. I should have probably made them going increments of 5. 1% is too small. But anyway, yes, that's what it looks like. You've got a regular web browser, and you can have it in there with other stuff. As I showed you here when my thing came up, it's got a bunch of other things in it, like playlists and stuff like that, and controls and settings and audio. You may have seen this. The camera's not running. I hope it's not running. I certainly don't want to turn it on. Anyway, maybe I will turn the camera on, make it aim at the ceiling. No, the camera was picked up by another process, so it's not available. But anyway, the web is one of these things that can be slid in and so forth. All right. Don't know why it's not picking up my audio channel. That's troubling. Let's get that off the screen. It's probably because of I'm just checking OBS to see if it was picking up audio. Anyway, funny things happen in Linux when you have Pulse and a bunch of different operations running. Everybody doesn't talk to everybody the way they should. All right, how does this work? How do I get that up? The simple, basic thing. Well, first of all, you go to your Glade window. How did I do this? This is the Glade window for what you just saw. First of all, there's a window main. Pretty standard. I didn't do much here. Make sure in window main that you make sure it should be double buffered. Double buffered is under common here. Double buffered. Watch out for that. It could get clicked off. Make sure it's double buffered. If it's not double buffered, when you update a page or scroll through a page, it'll be very jagged. You need make sure, double check the double buffered. Anyway, so it's a window. There's nothing specific about it, and has very little information. Doesn't even have a size. It's pretty much a standard window. You can give it a name if you want. All right, the window. Underneath that, I've got a fixed container. The fixed container, fixed one, has a height request because I want to make it a little bit bigger so there'd be some space under the buttons and so forth. There is a height request. So 618, let me see if I make it 620. I may have seen it move there. Okay, so that's fixed. Nothing in particular in it. Next of all, we have the URI. That's the name of the the entry box. It's an entry box. It's this guy down here. It's got shadow text in it, which just disappeared. There's the shadow text there, placeholder text. It's a URI. It's an entry box with the name URI. It's where I can put in URLs, URIs, and then load them into the web page. Okay, the next one is a go button. I didn't set up the enter, so you paste something in with the enter, and then you hit go, and that causes it to appear. All right, text link. Text link is right here. It's not actually. Oh, that's why I just realized they're overlapping. They shouldn't be overlapping. And that's why earlier when I mentioned there was a space where I couldn't drop into the box because the text link was overlapping it and I didn't see it. Let's see, maybe we should fix that. Well, first of all, the way to fix it is make this guy, move this guy further down. Okay, and let's see, I'm going to eyeball it. I'm not going to measure it precisely. And I suppose everybody ought to move down, more or less. That's 596, 596. Then these are not actually identical because they're different sizes. And now we go to the text link, and I want to move that up a twinkle. Okay, that's where it's going to show you the link you're about to link to. So it's still a little cramped, but anyway, there's the text link. It was overlapping the entry, and that was causing problems. I didn't realize it because it's not visible if there's nothing in it. You could make it have a background color or something, and then it would be visible, but no. Here's the close web button. It's just a plain old button. It's got a signal on close web clicked. Its name is closed web. Nothing special about that. Let's see. The text link has no signals. The go button is on go clicked. It's be a handler in the program. The entry point, the only thing it has, it's under GTK editable. It's on URI changed. Every time it gets changed, that function gets called on URI changed, and all the function does is copy the text out of it into a global character string. And then finally, when you hit enter, hit go, excuse me, it causes the character string to be loaded into the WebKit and the page brought up if it's available. All right, so those are the easy things. Those are the ones. This is the one you haven't seen before. I called them WebX and WebY. I was in a very creative mood. WebX and Webby. This is WebX. The other one over there is Webby. They're both pretty much the same. Let's see. Their name, there's the name WebX. Where did I get them, you're asking? Right here. See down here where it says WebView? I shouldn't have clicked it because now it thinks I want to enter one. I have no idea how to get it to stop doing that. But anyway, yeah, I clicked it. You dragged it in. I dragged it in. I'm not going to drag it in again. It's already here. All right, so we've got WebView, and it was brought in. And when I brought in the WebView, there's packing, there's size issues, all the usual things. If you've got any kind of box or something that you've put into your program, where to put it and how big to make it. So that's WebX. All right, under signals. Now, it's going to have a lot of different signals. First of all, there's a create signal on WebX create. That's when there's an attempt to create a window. We're going to get this signal. So if I right-click and say open in new window, that's an attempt to create a new window. If I left-clicked, it uses the same window. It's no creation. Right-click, open in new window, that means create a window. So that's the create signal. Load failed. When it's trying to load a web page or something and it doesn't work, you get this message. Now, in some cases, it did work, but it didn't do it itself. It was handled by something else, and you'll get a load failed anyway. But nonetheless, we'll see that. Mouse target changed. Okay, this is as you move around on the web page, and you mouse over an active link. This is the signal that you'll get. So if I moved my mouse over, Charleston weather, this would be called, and it would give me the link that I'm over. And that's what appears down here in this thing. Okay, that's what that place down there was for. Okay, back to WebX. So those are the only signals I take. There are certainly other signals I could take. But those are the only ones I'm worried about. Create, load failed, and mouse target changed. Can I move that over? Yeah, make it a little more visible. All right, under common, it's just the size. I didn't change anything else. I've got everything double buffered. I'm not sure if you actually have to be double buffered down here, but it isn't going to hurt. Packing is where it's going to go. It's going to go at 0, 0, and so forth. The other guy over here, WebY, is pretty much the same. The difference is it starts way the hell over at 656 horizontal and 0 vertical. So it's up at the top here, but it's displaced by 656. The number was trial and error. Again, this is all the same. It's got the same size, height and width size. At least it should. I'm not going to check, but anyway. And it's got the same. It has most of the same signals. It doesn't. I didn't do a load fail. I should have. I didn't. Anyway, I got to create. I got a ready to show. Oh, that's another one. Ready to show. That I didn't have on the other one. The ready to show signal comes up when the page has been fully constructed. I didn't do it for this page because it's being handled. I'm not creating this page. But this page over here I'm creating, and I'm supposed to wait for a ready to show before I can tell the system to display it. Otherwise, it's still being painted. On create, I do have that on create. I should have had a load failed, but I didn't. I forgot. It's not going to end the world. Matter of fact, not having it means it ignores the signal. And for the most part, if it fails, it fails. What are you going to do? You'll get a 404 or something like that, so don't worry about it. Anyway, so I get 2 web pages here. Two web views, I should say. There's more to them, however. If we go back to the first one here, the first one here is hooked up to something called settings. You see where it says web view settings? I went in here and I clicked on it, and I clicked on web settings. Where did web settings come from? I want to say cancel. I added it. There they are up there. See them? How did I add them? They're over here. Web settings. It's one of the other options. You can have multiple web settings. So I added web settings, and I just dragged it into the window area, and it popped up here. It doesn't display. It's just a set of settings, as it says. All right, so web settings was just dragged down here. So let me see if I can do that. Oh, no, it's not going to do that. I have to do this. I don't know why it does that like that, but anyway. Well, where are we going to put it? How about, it already dragged one in here. Let's get rid of that. Sometimes it gets tricky. All right, now back up here. I want to drag web settings. Where does it want to let me drag it? Oh, how about right down here? Yeah, that did it. You see it popped up over here. Sometimes it's a little awkward. There it is. There. It doesn't have a name. I didn't give it a name. This would be a place where you give it a name right here. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to delete it. But that's how I got the settings one. That's where I gave it the name right up here. So I'm going to delete this guy because I don't need it because I got one here. And its name is settings 1. These are where you can turn off and on settings. Enable JavaScript to auto-load images. All sorts of options, that you can, that are basic options that will apply to this web page. All right, they're going to apply to this web page. It also turns out it should apply to the other web page. Yeah, you see settings 1 is also for the other web page. Okay, so the same group of settings are being used for, that makes sense. But you could have 2. You could have 2 different sets of settings. So the settings, and we go back up, the settings are basic settings, font size, there's a million of these. I'm not going to, and some of them I don't know, some of them I do. There's, Anyway, most of them are correct defaults. You're probably not going to change them. But if you have the settings, then you can, in your program, dynamically modify the settings as you're going on. And what you do is you play around with settings 1. If you modify settings 1 from your program, it'll modify the settings of the pages that have been connected to settings 1, which in this case are both pages. They're not pages, they're called web views. All right, that's the settings. And they both these guys are set up for settings 1. All right. Then this guy here does not have a related web view. All right, it's the main view. I don't have any. It's the first view. It's the primary view. Don't have a URL filled in. I think that's the startup one. But anyway, there's so many of these policies and so forth that I've never played with. But you can play with them if you get into it. But nonetheless, related web view. We don't have it on the primary page. Do have it on the secondary page. Secondary page, you click this and you can see it's got other stuff that you could connect it to. And there's only actually one that you can connect it to. It's the only one you could check, which is WebX. It's an existing web view. You can't do it to fix, can't do it, you can't do it to itself. But you could have more than one web page out, a web view out there, and this is the one which is going to be the related web view. What it means is that first page over here, this guy, is the first one up. When it runs this WebKit, it runs it in a detached process, so that if the web page blows up, which does happen, or if it's got, malware in it or something like that, it won't corrupt your original process. It runs as a secondary process in its own sandbox too. I don't know if that's by default or you have to turn it on, but it's a separate process. It's a huge process. If you've ever looked at the amount of space that Chrome takes up, if you go in there and when Chrome's running, is Chrome running at the moment? I don't think so. If you look at what Chrome's running and you add up all the Chrome, you'll find Chrome is pretty large too. We're talking gigabytes. And this guy does as well. It uses a huge amount of space. You don't want to start up two of them. So when you say it's a related web view, it means it uses the same process. It's not going to kick off a second process. Okay? So you do use the related in all subsequent or, created web views. You would want to relate them to the primary web page, web view. All right. So basically, it's pretty simple. I got a URI, an entry box. I got a button, got another button. I got a label, and I got two WebKit views. Now, I'll drop that down. When I start it up, as you could see, you only see one view. That's because I hide the other one. The first thing the program does after creating it is it hides it. And it shrinks the window down to something smaller than it really is, which of course it won't go. It'll go down to its actual minimum size. But there is another one out here, but it got hidden before you saw it. And only gets brought to life when I want to. How does all this work? Well, first of all, I got to get that Glade file done correctly. And here it is. And let me make this a bit bigger. Up at the top here, I have put some of these links. Oh, one thing right here, and I only play with Debian-based systems. Right now I'm on Linux Mint 20.2, the very latest. If you're on Ubuntu or Debian itself and so forth, they all have. You use apt-get to install stuff. You're going to have to, if you're on some other system, you're going to have to figure out how to do it. You need to install libwebkit2 gtk-4.0-dev or whatever is the most recent. Okay? When you watch this, by the time you watch it, it could be a different revision number. Right now it's 4.0. You got to install that because the libraries won't be there, the include files won't be there. You need the development one too, -dev. Okay? So install that first, or don't try to do this. Don't send me chat messages saying it didn't work. Well, did you install the software? No. Well, it isn't going to work until you do. All right, documentation. There's that main page, and then there's some other pages on navigation and so forth that I have used. At least to get you a start, you can find anything from up there. All right, most of this is pretty simple. This pretty much the same. I think some of these I probably don't need, but nonetheless, I'm not going to worry about it. They don't hurt anything if you don't use them. If the code in them is never referenced, it doesn't matter. There it is. Include webkit2/webkit2.h. That's the header file you need. Okay, there I make my widgets global. Some people pass them around in structures and so forth. I live dangerously and make them global. So there's the builder, the window, the fixed one. There's Webby and WebX, URI. There are the widgets that I'll be using. There is my there is the one for settings. Okay, it's not a GTK widget. You make it a WebKit settings. You declare it WebKit settings. It's not to be declared a widget. and that's it. Okay, there is my URL, 4096. Figure that's big enough for URL or a URI, and that's the global. So if you paste something in that you want to go to into the entry box, it gets filled in there. And there's I don't really do anything. There's no reason for me to have a separate destroy function, but I do. Anyway, if you didn't, it wouldn't hurt. We start off with init GTK. Done this before. There's some bug in it that's been there apparently for a long time. And if you don't put these next two lines in, it isn't going to work. I don't know the details of why. I don't care. It's a bug. I really don't. They haven't fixed it yet. But this is a workaround, and there is the reference on the bug, and there's the bug number. Okay? But, WebKit view get type, WebKit settings get type. This apparently initializes something, which if it's not initialized, I think you get seg faults. I've forgotten what you get. But put these in. After you initialize GTK, put these in. If you decide not to put them in, don't tell me about it, because it ain't going to work. Someday they'll fix it. At the moment, they haven't fixed it. All right, so just mention that these guys have to be at the top. And they have to be there. They have to be before the rest of this stuff. Okay, there's the builder. I'm bringing it in from a resource. It's called WebKit.Glade. We've done resources before, but it's the resource file is nothing to it. If I can type correctly, yeah, that's it. All right, just WebKit.Glade, and when you compile it, there's a compile script. This code will be on my website once I upload it down here. There's two steps. One is the glib compile resources. That takes resource.xml. We've mentioned this before, and creates resource.c, and then resource.c is let me make this bigger so it's not so hideous. GCC someplace, and there's WebKit.c. That's the thing I'm compiling, and I add to it resource.c. It's got all the other stuff in it that I may want to put in, so they come in as code. They're embedded into your program. That we've done. I'm not going to get into that, but nonetheless. By the way, while we're in here, the flag someplace in here for, I don't see it. You probably have spotted it there. Package config. That's where you put the configuration information in for WebKit to GTK-4.0. But by the time you see this, it might be 10.0. I don't know. That the world may have changed a lot. But you have to put the references in, which gives you the addresses of the include files and the libraries and all that stuff. I think all these others are probably needed, but I'm not sure. Some of these I just accumulate as I go on. I just use this as a compilation. Once again, if you don't use a function that's in a library, it doesn't matter. It just maybe takes the link editor a little longer to work. But anyway, so that's the compilation. It's called compile.script. All right, kill that off. So I'm back over here. So there's the builder. That's where I'm pulling in the Glade file, which is an XML file. It's actually WebKit.xml. Well, it's an XML. It's not Glade, but it is actually XML. Anyway, there's where I build the window. This is all standard stuff. Connect the signals. Then I define. Then fixed comes in. WebX comes in. WebY comes in. URI go close. That's where I pull in all of the information necessary to construct these widgets on the screen. Then here's where I play hide and seek. Hide Webby and hide close web. Close web is the button. So these two guys get hidden before you see them because we have not started GTK yet. GTK main has not been hit. So the screen hasn't been painted. But when the screen gets painted, they'll already be hidden. Then I do a resize of the window, 400 by 400. The window is actually bigger than that. And the 400 by 400 is smaller than the actual size of the window, but the window will only downsize to its minimum size. So picking some numbers that are smaller causes it to reduce itself to its minimum size. I just randomly picked 400 by 400 since I know they're smaller. That's smaller than the actual window. Okay, then there's the question of pulling in an initial web page. Originally, I was going to go to my own website, so I just copy, my standard web link to my web page into the web URL. But I decided instead to go with menu, copying into web URL the file that's associated with menu. Now that has to be in the URI format, file : / okay, that's required. Where is the file? Well, the address of the file begins here, /home / okay. This will be different on your computer, obviously. But /home / okay desktop, that's the location on my computer of menu.html. All right, so I've decided I wanted to go with that. Originally I was going with this. All I have to do is uncomment that and comment this, and it'll go there. All right, once you've got it, once you've set web URL with something loadable, then I hit WebKit Web View Load URI. I load the URL. I tell it to load it. Now, WebEx is a widget, GTK widget. You have to cast it to WebKit Web View. You can't just pass the widget. Can't pass it as a GTK widget. You have to cast it to what it really is, which is a WebKit Web View. I do it this way. You could declare every one of those different, but I used to just call them widgets and cast them as necessary. I decided to go with a different color background on the page, or the outside of the page. The inside of the actual web page will be determined by your HTML code. But that gives me a page which is slightly blue of gray, and that's how you modify that. That's the whole page itself. Let me see. You see down here, this color here, this darker gray, which if I made it, that's this color here. That's where that's coming from. It's slightly blue of gray. I don't know what it looks like on your screen. I got my brightness way cranked down, but it looks sort of a slate gray to me. Your color may vary. All right, so anyway, you don't have to do that. I just didn't particularly want white back there. Anyway, changing settings. I'm not really changing the settings, and I didn't do it, but here's an example. The function, WebKit settings set minimum font size. That's one of the functions, one of the 50 million functions in the collection. And I cast it as, I didn't really need to cast it because that actually was declared as WebKit settings. So casting it has no effect, but it already was that, so I didn't technically need it. And I'm saying I'm going to move to font size 34. If I did that, all the fonts would be twice as big as normal. I think the default's 16 or something. But yeah, that's one way of changing the settings. And you can change any settings. And you would have to go back to the web page, which I guess I've lost here, and find the function that would do the thing you want to do. Another one was zoom. Here's the zoom level. The zoom level is not a setting. It's actually to the page, and that would be 1.5 or 150% of normal. And actually, in my other application, notice I put a spin button in to do that. Okay, those are you can enable those and play with them if you want, but they're just some examples of some of the things you can do to affect the appearance of the web page. GTK main, we're off to the races. The main loop now runs, and when it ends, the program ends. Okay, where are the functions? Functions are simple. On destroy, well, we just quit. In other words, if you click the box up the X in the upper right-hand corner, you come to this function quits. You could do other things at this point in time, but before you, but it basically quits. If you didn't put it in here, it would have quit anyway. URI changed. That's if you've pasted something in or modified that entry box, you come here. If the length of 0, just plain return, there's no particular reason to copy something that put some blanks in there. Yeah, so you otherwise you copy. If it's been changed, you do a load into. Excuse me, I'm in the wrong one. I'm in the wrong one. I've clicked. I've changed. I'm ahead of myself. Sorry. All right, URI changed. If it's a URI change, you copy the contents of the entry box into web URL. Web URL. That's the string 4096 up above. It's global. This is the function GTK entry get text. It's a standard GTK function. And I pass it the entry box pointer, which I got as the parameter to the function. So I pass E to it, and it will give me back a pointer to the text which I copy into web URL, and I limit the copy at 4096. It's an strn copy. All right, now clicked. This is when somebody clicks go. Okay, when they click go, you come here. If the length of the URL is 0, forget about it. We're not going to do anything. If it's not 0, what we will do is we will tell the web view to load the URI. WebKit web view load URI. Load this URI. And here I'm casting WebEx to be a WebKit web view. Again, you could have declared them all their correct types and not have to cast them, but I do it this way. You can do it any way you want. Anyway, and there's the text. So that text will be sent to the WebKit saying, here, load this. Now, I don't know if there's actually ways of pre-parsing it and finding out if it's parsable or imparsable. But now I just let give it a try, see what happens. Nothing's going to hopefully blow up completely. All right, here's the load failed. This is the WebEx load fail. That means for some reason it couldn't fail. You can get a whole bunch of information here. One is you can print out the you get the error here, the error code. The G error code comes in as a parameter to failed. Okay, you get a bunch of different things. You get the load event, you get the page or the web view that you're actually loading into. You get the load event, you get the failing URI, the URI that caused the problem. It's this character string, and you get an error code. You can see the error code by it's a structure. Error is the name of the instance. It's the pointer to the instance. So error arrow code will give you the code number. Error arrow message will give you the actual text message of the error. If the code is 204, it means that the load is being handled by a plugin. I don't know why they call it failed, but I guess their interpretation is the web view itself did not load it. It turned it over to a plugin. That's in the case where you play music. You get a 204. So I just return true, which basically tells it don't process this message any further. These are, these Boolean returns are things that they're events that have occurred that you get a shot at. But you can then, when you're finished, you can tell the system either pass this on to other processing, if appropriate, or don't pass it on to further processing. When you return true, you're telling it, don't process it any further. We're done processing this message or this event. So that's what you normally do, but you don't always do it. Okay, so if it was just music, or a plugin handled it, I just return true. I don't want to do anything. Otherwise, I reload web URL with my default page. That's my default page, as we did up above. And then I tell it to load it, okay? And I tell it to load that default page, then I return true, okay? So I could have done something like this. The load, if you don't do a load failed, the system just handles it the way it normally handles it, and I forget what that is. But anyway, if you don't have this, you don't process the signal, the system will. Okay, this is create. This is when you right-click and you tell it to like open a new window or something like that. You get a create, and you get a bunch of stuff here. You get, of course, the web view of the page that you're on, or the web view you're on, and you also get navigation action. You get a whole bunch of signals for navigation, a whole bunch of functions to carry them through. First of all, here is the WebKit navigation type, which I pull it out from the WebKit navigation action. All right, I've got a mouse print. A mouse, this is a print functional print on this text over here in the invoking window. If anybody's interested, if it's been invoked from a launcher on your screen top, this information is lost. Types out mouse button %D, and it prints out the result of WebKit navigation action get mouse button, and there's the navigation action. It tells you which mouse button was clicked. All right. Type, which I pulled out up here, is the navigation type. I now interrogate the type. These are in the documentation. So if it was form submitted, navigation type backward, forward. With that type of navigation, you're going forward or backward. And it prints out the message for each of these, most of which I don't really care about. There's some other action. Okay, down here, let's see. I get a pointer to navigation action itself, and this is the requested URI. I'm getting a pointer to the URI that's being requested, and I print it out. Okay, this is where I print out the URI of what you're attempting to navigate to. All right, and if the type is other and the mouse is 0, I return Webby. Now, when the thing you return from this function, function being on create, is the web view into which it will load or create the thing you're doing. Whatever you're doing, it'll be done in that page. So if it's other, and if it's, I really don't have to do other, but I don't think. But anyway, if it's other, and if it's mouse 0, which is the right mouse button, I return Webby. And so everything will be done in the WEBY page. Okay? Otherwise, I return web view, which is, of course, the original page, which is probably WebX, but it might be WebI. Web view is the page that this navigation is taking place in. So if you're taking place in the second page, WebY, web view will be WebY. If it's taking in the first page, it would be probably would be WebX, and web view would be WebX, and you want the thing to happen in WebY. So how much wood would a woodchuck chuck? It gets messy here. But anyway, what you return is the page into which the action is going to take place. If you specify WebY, that's the page it's going to take place in. And that page is their views. But anyway, otherwise I return what it passed me, which could be either one. And that's the page it will take place in. Web view is whatever page you were in when you clicked something. All right, here's the target change thing. I suppose I could make this a little more friendly. This problem with these functions that they're so big. Web mouse target change. Now you've moused over a link, an active link, and it sees it. All right. When that happens, you come here, and you get the web view. You get WebKit hit test result, and I get a pointer to that, and I get modifiers, which are nothing. I didn't set up any modifiers. You can set up modifiers that would be passed over in Glade. There's a special column for setting up your own modifiers. Okay, what I'm doing is I'm trying to get, I want to get the text of the link that you moused over. So if you moused over a link to Charleston weather forecast, I want to get the link to the Charleston weather forecast. How do I get it? Well, it's a gchar, or character string, character pointer, same thing. Gchar link, and this is the function. WebKit hit test result get link URI. We're in the competition for the longest function name here, as you can see. This is the function, which if you give it the pointer that came down as WebKit hit test result up above, you put that there, it will give you the link to the underlying link underlying the mouse. Wonderful. If it's null, I just set, if it's not null, okay, if it's not null, excuse me, if the link is not null, I don't know why it could be null, but you never know. If it's not null, I then hit GTK label set text. This sets the text of the link to be the text of the link that it just passed me. Otherwise, I set it to be empty. Let me do this, and we'll run it and see. I have to recompile it because I didn't with the changes I made. Those changes where I readjusted the boundaries and the sizes of everything. Well, it looks like I still don't have them here, but yeah, you can see the. Did I ever save it? What am I doing wrong here? I probably didn't save it. That's a big problem, by the way. You make a change and you don't save it. Oh, I don't know if that's what I did, but that's something I often do. I make a change and I don't save it. Yeah, now it's different. As you can see, as I'm mousing over, you can see the things changing down there. Yeah, that was an error. I didn't realize things had gotten scrunched up, and I'd set those up to come up in yellow. But those are the links. Like that one there is a local file. It's a different format. And this one here is local file. This one here is to a website. All right. So this function here, target changed, is where this occurs. I get the link from this function. WebKit hit test result get link URI, and it passes me back a pointer to the text which I put into that label. Otherwise, I make the label empty. Wow. Here is a create Webby. When Webby gets create, I don't do anything. I just return it. I don't think I actually had a signal for that. On Webby, did I actually have a signal for create? Yeah, I did. I don't do anything though. I just return it. It's there. Didn't do anything on create. And let the creation take place in the current one. If it's on Webby create, WebView is Webby. I mean, you can't get a signal from it. It's coming from that view. So, all right, ready to show. Here's when the ready to show. Once it's painted Webby, it's a signal from Webby. WebEx doesn't give it to me. I come down here and when it's ready to show, it's fully painted. Here's where I reveal it. I hit GTK show Webby and GTK show close web. That's the button. So I'm showing them. All of a sudden, it widens because these are now visible again. All right. These guys are visible, and this makes them visible, and so on. When you click the close button, you get this signal. On close web clicked. That's the button over there, if you remember, the close button. And you just hide stuff. Hide Webby, hide close button has the button, close web, that's the button. And resize the window back to 400 by 400, and that makes it disappear. It shrinks things. So you can see when I did it here, if I again, Charleston, whoops, I did it in the same window. It's going to come up. Did it get my click or not? Okay, open in new window. There it is. Takes a moment to come up. It's 87 outside now. And if I hit close, you see it disappears. It was still coming up here because I hit it once there. And I right click and I get back. So I've got all sorts of neat stuff there. And let's see, one of them here was my Morse code. I've opened that. Now, I can open neither window, but I open a new window, it'll pop over there. I don't know if you can hear it. And close it up. That was, I don't know what it brings up. MPV, I think, is what it brings up to do the player. I haven't found that, discovered, but I'm assuming it's MPV. Looks like MPV. And there's a volume control there, too. Okay, there you are. Code's pretty simple, but it's the top end of something which is really complicated. They have got a function to do things that you didn't know you could do. But if you just basically want to put up a simple web browser into your app, a web browser window in your app, and show web pages, this will do it. And that can be really handy. And you can magnify and shrink it. You get the zoom controls and so forth. You can make it unwritable. Some people can't modify it. But yeah, you can. There's a lot of stuff out on the web, and you can actually embed that into your application. So I hope that wasn't too confusing. I hope it was just right confusing. So we'll stop it there.